All right, welcome back, everybody. So the Democratic Alliance will today present its cabinet report card on its performance in the Gauteng Government and its executive. It comes amid a string of challenging developments being faced by the DA in Gauteng metros. Provincial Human Settlements and Cooperative Governance MEC, Lebogang Maile, plans to place Tswhane City under administration, saying it'll bring stability and deal with service delivery challenges. The Joburg Mayor Herman Mashaba resigned from the position and the party recently. And also adding to the DA's woes, Maile has instructed the Joburg City Council to urgently convene to elect a new speaker in a move likely to oust the current DA speaker. So to talk about all of these issues, we've got Solly Msimanga in studio with us. He, of course, is the DA's caucus leader in the Gauteng Legislature. Good to have you. Thanks so much for coming in to talk to us.
Thank you very much, and good morning to the viewers at home, Lian.
Not a good time for the DA.
It's a challenging time. I don't know if it's not a good time, but it's a challenging time. But it can be a good time for the rest of South Africa, and in fact for the people of Gauteng. Because some of the things that are happening actually then gives us an opportunity to really take some of these things to a court of law, really look at what is really happening here. I mean, if you were to examine what Lebogang Maile is trying to do as an example, you realize that the ANC is really realizing now that they're not going to have enough resources to run their 2021 local government campaign. They don't have the patronage system that they used to have in the EPWP program, which now they're wanting to make sure that they get their hands back on to be able to then, dispense patronage and, run their 2021 campaign. So what we are now saying is that we cannot allow democracy to be made a mockery here in South Africa, where in a city like Tswane, where there's a coup that is actually now been that is being staged. What we saw happening last week is that in a city where there is a speaker and a deputy speaker, Lebogang Maile sends an official without even any kind of authorization to go and preside over a meeting. That is an illegal act. Then he makes an announcement to say the city of Tswane is under administration. Then we point out the procedures, the flawed processes that had gone through. He changes his tone and says he's intending on putting the city under administration. Funny enough, Friday afternoon, he writes to the mayor, and in the letter that he writes to the mayor, all the things that he states actually are incorrect, factually incorrect. And then within 2 hours, there have already been a response. But what is very interesting, and this is why I'm bringing it back to the issue of what needs to be done in the whole of Gauteng, is that you can go back and then say, let's look at other municipalities. Mfuleni, is a disaster right now. We're having sewer that is flowing into the Vaal, which is feeding us with water. On a daily basis, there's no street that is not full of sewer. In Mirafong, as an example, they haven't been able to pay municipal workers, including councillors, for 3 months. Officials had to lock councillors into the council chambers. Then we ask the question, what is Lebogang Maile's interest in this whole matter, really? So
let's leave other municipalities out of the equation right now and focus on what you have got, because the DA had Joburg.
Yeah.
Then you lost it. You literally gave it away. And that is, that has to have had the biggest effect on this party. We're going to focus on Joburg for now. We'll then move over to Tswane. Herman Mashaba resigns as the mayor, resigns as the party. In fact, there's even talk that some of your members went and voted in favor of the ANC leading.
Yeah.
And this has to tell people that the DA is in a shambles right now. Literally, you had it on a golden platter and you handed it over. And this is a very, very disturbing and worrying sign of the official opposition party in South Africa.
Indeed, it is a worrying sign that, we find ourselves in a bit of a mess at the current moment. But one thing I love about my party is that we are able to reflect and do so publicly, and we're able to correct. Which other party have you had after elections taking a post-mortem document and making it public? Only the DA is able to do that and actually act on the recommendations that are there. Don't entirely agree with everything that is in that report, but we are acting on it and correcting some of the things. Losing Joburg, it's a painful thing that you've worked so hard. You begin to see the changes. You're beginning to implement some of the things that we wanted to implement, and then before you could actually even see some of the results, you're out. But it's the nature of democracy. If it's done, in a legal way, I think we are, Democrats, and we're people who believe in the Constitution. If the Constitution allows for something like that to happen, you accept the results thereof.
Yeah. Now, we look at Tswhane and we look at service delivery within Tswhane. People are very upset with the way Tswhane is being run at the moment. I mean, I'm just going to take Hammanskraal as an example. People are furious. They cannot drink the water. They'll tell the I don't know whether to call him the former mayor or the mayor, Mokgalapa. I'm not sure what's going on there. Stevens Mokgalapa. And he's saying, no, there's nothing wrong with this water. There is something wrong with the water. You look at the color of the water, you look at the state that the water's in, and people are not even receiving water. This is critical. This is a service delivery disaster. People need to step in and assist, and maybe the ANC is correct in doing that and saying, listen, you guys are messing this up. We got to come in and sort this out.
Well, Leanne, I think South Africans, and specifically the people of Tswane, need not have short memory. The problem of the water in Hammanskraal didn't start when we took over. It's a 2-decade problem that has been there. We have it on record. When we came in, I made a promise to the people of Hammanskraal that we were going to sort out the problem of the water there once and for all. We went out on tender, and we were ready to award the contract. It was going to be a 4 billion rand contract. Lo and behold, Nomvula Mkonyane, who was then the MEC for the Minister for Water Affairs, put a stop to it. It's there in black and white. And when we asked, we realized that it's because none of their comrades were part of the panel or part of the 3 that were shortlisted. I had a meeting with the Premier in that particular area of Hammanskraal, and I said to them, here are the documents. Tell the people why we were never able to resolve this issue once and for all. But we never throw our hands in the air and say, we can't resolve this issue. We finalized the Temba water treatment plant, which is in Hammanskraal. There were situations where there was sabotage, because you would clean the water, start releasing it. 2-3 days later, the plant is actually sabotaged. And one we realize is that there are people that are benefiting from the chaos that is there, because the tankers are actually making money once there's no water that is supplied by the municipality. So we are now paying the tankers to deliver water. And in fact, some of the truckers themselves are actually selling water to the people of Hammanskraal, in addition to us paying them. So that is a situation that now needs to be fixed. And that is the thing that we said to the Premier and to the Department of Water Affairs. Let's come and join hands and see how we're able to, once and for all, resolve this. And you realize that the water problem in Hammanskraal is not actually in Hammanskraal. It's coming upstream from Rayval treatment plant, which was built almost 60 years ago in Pretoria, never been upgraded up to now when we said we wanted to start upgrading it, so that the flow from Rayval downstream will then be cleaner water, which will then mean that people of Hammanskraal are getting clean water.
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, in general, we can talk about that. That's an issue on itself. But if you just look at the state of the city of Tswane, it's deteriorated. It really has. And I mean, this is from people that live there. It's gone down, you know, and people had great expectations for the DA. But let's talk about what you're going to do today, because you're presenting your scorecard on departments, and I mean, one would say that this is the party's way of actually trying to salvage the reputation in the face of everything that the DA is facing right now. I mean, is that a correct assertion? Assertion, I beg your pardon, because you are in the situation that you're in. So now you're presenting the scorecard, and what can we expect from that?
Well, Leanne, I think, first of all, let me just correct one thing that you said. You spoke about the city being in shambles.
Yeah.
Let me put it on record. For the last 7 years of the ANC's administration, and when we came over, the past 2 years were the first years that the city of Tswane have gone through implementation of services without borrowing a cent. Now, for you to be able to then give people proper services, you need to have funds, which is now the city, which is now where the city finds itself. It has now the money to do that. The city has had issues where I termed it marker plan, where everything, when it was damaged, there was never really any effort to really fix things in Tswane, or to actually make sure that things are maintained. We now have a maintenance budget. We are now fixing things that shouldn't have been damaged or shouldn't have been led to deteriorate to the levels that they find themselves in. So these are things that, as I said earlier on, you need enough time to be able to then implement corrective measures going forward. Going forward now to what you asked about the scorecard.
Yeah.
We are saying, there is things that needs to be done that haven't been done. There are things that are done and are done wrongly. There are things that now, when you realize what is currently happening in government, really is shocking. When you have so many homeless people that are living in our areas, and yet you find the Department of Social Development returning money to Treasury. Those are things that we cannot stand back and say because the DA is finding itself in a little bit of a trouble, then we cannot talk about. We will be failing the people of South Africa or the people of Gauteng, to be particular, if we did that. When you talk about human settlements, we've still been asking now, where are the housing lists? We're now seeing people living in floodlines because things are not, being done in speedily as they should be. Yet the Department of Human Settlement, year in and year out, get a disclaimer. So these are some of the things that we're going to be talking about today.
Yeah. I mean, the DA isn't the government in the province. Obviously, we do know this. And therefore, shouldn't you be reporting on your performance in municipalities, rather?
Well, we are. We are reporting on our performance. We're critical of our performance in municipalities. We are correcting our mistakes in municipalities. We are actually communicating what we're doing right and what we're doing wrong and how we then taking steps in correcting those. But then remember, we also have a mandate to keep the ANC on its toes at the provincial level. The ANC is only in government by one, majority of one. And the people of Gauteng want to know that there is a government in place that will work for them, or the opposition that will really put pressure on government to make sure that it does what needs to be done.
Some other issues that are happening. So tomorrow the DA is to convene a special council meeting to elect a speaker in the city of Johannesburg, and this of course is a big moment at that point in time. Is this under Maile's instruction?
Yes. So Maile wrote to the city manager to say the city manager must convene a meeting to elect a speaker, while there is a speaker in Johannesburg. What authority does he have to do that? And this is what we've been calling for, to say he must stop abusing state resources and the authority that has been given to him for political gains. There is processes to be followed. Those processes are now being, flooded left, right, and center. And this is why we're saying, if needs be, we're going to be able to approach court of law. We are Democrats. If there's a process of electing people and removing people in place, that should happen. But it should not be done, under the wrongful influence of Maile and the Department of Corporate Governance.
Yeah. Again, we look at what's happening in Tswane and we look at the mayor, Stephen Smakholapa. What is happening there? Because we do know that you went to the courts and you tried to overturn all of this, and then there's a hearing that's coming up. I think it's on the 16th, is that correct? Of December. Talk to us about what's going on. I mean, how does it stand right now?
Right. So the Lebogang Maile sends an official to come and officiate over a meeting in an illegal manner. No authorization, no letter of authorization whatsoever that the official had, nor did the department issue a letter to then say that you can go and officiate over a meeting. Then the ANC and the EFF stopped the deputy or the acting speaker from ascending and presiding over a meeting. And then people nominate and elect themselves on stage. That is chaos on its own. Then Lebogang Maile writes as he writes. So what now needs to happen is we went to court and say, this is procedurally wrong. These things need to now be corrected going forward. And the court says, yes, you are right, but then we need to hear what is the other side. And we're confident we are going to win this case. And then this is where we find ourselves now at this point in time. The issue of Stephen Smakholapa, yes, there are, things that, were exposed and all of that. The DA is taking action internally in terms of how to deal with...
how far are your investigations with that?
I'm not part of the FLC or the legal commission of the DA. Glennis Breitenbach is actually heading that, and then they are actually investigating. What I know so far is that they have been interviewed. I don't know, how far, the process has gone in that.
So there's no time frame on when we'll find out what was going on in that tape, the things that were said, the so-called Sex in the City tape, and whether or not he, from the DA's perspective, should be removed anyway.
Well, look, I'm not here to say on behalf of the DA what should happen right now. I think the process is unfolding. And what I know is that, the leader, the interim leader, has asked that this matter be processed as speedily as possible to ensure that, come the new year, we can make an announcement and then we are able to then move on from there. So I know that it is in an advanced stage. I don't know the details, as I said, but I know that the leader wants to have this matter wrapped up as soon as possible.
Yeah, it's a mess. I go back to my original conversation with you. I mean, you look at the way the DA, unfortunately, over this last year has deteriorated. And a lot of people look to it and say, what is the future of this party? I mean, do you even have faith in your own party? And if so, why?
Yeah, well, I do, Leanne. And this is why I said to you, I'm proud to be a member of the DA. The fact that we're able to realize and recognize that there are flaws, and we are working very hard to correct those. And we've made announcements in terms of the timelines that we're going to be going through. We said that come April, we're going to have our policy conference, which will then lead into the elections of the new executive that will take the DA forward come next year. So all these things are things that we reflected on, and we are then say, how do we then begin to correct that? A policy conference will also be something of importance for us, because then it begins to then bring back the focus that we all need, and then saying, how do we then offer an alternative to what the current situation is in South Africa. That's what the opposition needs to be, and that's what a government in waiting will actually do. I think every other party goes through a cycle of a good time, and then they go through a bad time. The test is whether you are able to go through the bad time without really crumbling into pieces.
And I completely understand that. But just on a closing note, and I have to ask you this question, because, I mean, it's one thing asking your new interim leader, John Steenhuisen, the issue of race, where he is a white man, and many people are looking at the DA and saying that this party has absolutely lost its way when it's come to the unity of South Africa, because it's focusing particularly on white interest. Do you feel that way? I mean, do you feel that the DA has lost its way? Herman Mashaba has said so. Your former leader has also said so, Msimanga. How do you feel as a black man in the DA?
Well, I'm one of those people that believe that the DA is the vehicle, the only vehicle that is available now that is able to pull people of all races together. The issue of addressing the injustice of the past is at the center of why people are pulling this way or that way. And I'm of the view that race does matter, but what really is important going forward is realizing and recognizing that you cannot address the injustices of the past without recognizing that there were injustices against certain race. So this is where we now need to find ourselves, and then how do we then pull people out of that? Unfortunately, that cannot be said by other parties. And, I find it very interesting that the issue of race or the comments around race are actually only limited or only focused on the Democratic Alliance. And you've never heard somebody questioning the ANC on its race policy, or the EFF, who've said some things that are shocking. But the DA, we're facing it and we're owning it. And we are saying we're not going to be ashamed of calling ourselves a non-racial, non-sexist organization that is going to ensure that it becomes the ethos of how South Africa is going to look like and operate and feel like going forward.
I think the difficult part is that it's not necessarily us saying it about the DA, it's the DA saying it about itself.
And this is...
It's your former members of the party that are saying that there is a problem inside the party, and that makes us worry.
And this is why we're going into that conference, to debate that and to say, how do you then ensure that ultimately you have a solution that is able to then look at the historical injustices and address those, and the legacy that comes with it, address that going forward. And then ensure that you're not able, you're not alienating one race while you're trying to help another. That is the balance that is now needed in South Africa. Yeah. We're unfortunately not seeing that. In fact, what we're seeing is people being reminded of apartheid instead of addressing the legacy of apartheid. We now need to make sure that we address the legacy of apartheid by making sure that people get the services that they deserve, they get a quality of life that they deserve. That's what we now need to be focusing on.
We leave it there. Thanks for talking to us.
Thank you.
Thanks for a frank conversation with us. Solly Msimanga is the DA's caucus leader in the Gauteng Legislature, talking to us about all issues related to, firstly, the Gauteng Legislature and, of course, the DA in general. It is